advantage of the unequal numbers. From their actions and location, Alex assumed the blue had been defending the women by the coach. From the reaction of the two women, the anguish clear on their faces, he assumed they knew the dying men. On the far side of all the fighting sat 3 men on horseback, watching. 2 looked like dandies, the men dressed in fanciful attire, also trimmed in red. They did not appear to be wearing chainmail, and their clothing was not suited for battle. The 3rd man was dressed like the men in red on the ground. He held a crossbow across his lap, pointed at no one in general. Alex was sure he must be delusional at this point. He figured he was really laying at the bottom of a hole somewhere in the Washington forest. He was sure of it. This all looked like something out of one of the fantasy novels he liked to read, although the blood and gore was far too realistic for his tastes. The 4 soldiers started to approach the women, swords menacing. Without thinking about it, Alex shouted, "Hey, back off!" With that shout, all eyes turned to Alex. One of the men on horseback shouted something Alex didn't understand, but his gestures clearly indicated he wanted Alex to butt out. Alex wasn't sure what to do next, as this whole situation seemed completely unreal to him. Everyone seemed to pause for a moment, and then the same dandy on horseback issued another command, this time to the rider with the crossbow. In one swift move, the rider lifted the crossbow and fired it at Alex. Without mentally acknowledging it, Alex had knocked an arrow in his bow earlier while watching the fighting. Smoothly sidestepping the crossbow bolt, he raised the bow and let fly in return. In a flash, the arrow hit the rider in the left eye, the shaft appearing at the back of his head as he fell from the horse. With that, the dandy shouted again, and the 4 swordsmen in red turned to Alex. He quickly released 2 more shafts in rapid succession, dropping 2 men as the others closed on him. He then dropped the bow in his left hand and with his right hand drew the sword from the sheath across his back. Then, in his left, he drew a fighting dagger from his belt he hadn't even realized he carried. Alex was moving like a man possessed. He had no idea at all what he was doing. It could be called muscle memory, except he had never practiced the moves he was now performing with proficient skill. He knew from his reading that he was using what was called the Florentine technique for sword fighting. The disconcerting thing was, he had never in his life done it. He slipped to one side, engaging the closer swordsman, deflecting his attack with the sword while slashing at him with the dagger. As the man retreated, Alex continued the spin, catching the second attacker off guard and driving the dagger into his exposed shoulder. Alex withdrew just in time to avoid the renewed attack from the first man, parrying the swing with his own sword and then driving the dagger into the man's exposed middle. It was then that Alex noticed both men had chainmail under their tunics, but the dagger was slicing through it as if it were mere cloth. Pushing off to break away from the man as he was falling, Alex caught a glimpse of the wounded swordsman driving toward him with raised sword, too close for Alex to block in time. Suddenly, a black mass of fur and teeth leaped past Alex, grabbing on the swordsman's arm and wrenching him to the ground. A second snap at his throat had blood spouting everywhere. As Alex recovered, he braced and backed away to address the large black wolf that turned to face him. As its face looked up to meet his, its tail started wagging. Looking into its eyes, Alex couldn't believe what he saw. Kinsey? Kinsey came up to Alex, tail flying in both directions and licking the offered hand. As Alex was patting her head, the red-headed woman in armor shouted something at him and pointed up the trail. At the same moment, the other woman darted forward, checking the fallen in blue. Alex turned to see the 2 dandies riding away at a hurried pace. The redhead shouted again, pointing at Alex's bow and then the rider's, while stepping forward to cover the other woman with her sword. "What?" Alex asked, shrugging his shoulders at her. She again pointed at the riders more insistently, repeating whatever she had said before. Not waiting to interpret further, he dropped the sword and then picked up his bow. As he stepped forward, he pulled an arrow out of one of the fallen men in red and drew back on the bow. Again, with a skill he didn't understand, he waited and then let the shaft fly. All 3 watched as the shaft and rider converged, the arrow striking the rider in the right shoulder. It was a solid hit, but without enough force.